Sparkles in the dark studio. Jimin held Jungkook's trembling face. What happened next shocked every heart. Milky Way growing heart fire. The sound of something fragile shattering echoed through the dimly lit studio. Jungkook's breath hitched, his chest rising and falling in frantic waves, eyes glossy as if holding back a storm. Jimin stepped forward so quietly it was as if the shadows carried him. His fingers brushed Jungkook's trembling cheek, firm yet gentle, and he whispered with a voice torn between fear and devotion, "Kook, look at me. Please." The air was thick dust, sweat, the faint scent of rain on Jungkook's hoodie, and something electric pulsing between them. The single flickering overhead light painted their faces in moving shadows, turning the studio into a heart-shaped battlefield. Jungkook didn't look up at first. His jaw tightened. His hands were clenched so hard his nails left half-moon marks in his palm. The shattered glass on the floor reflected fragments of a confession he had tried to swallow for too long. Jimin saw it. Felt it. And yet he didn't pull his hand away. He lifted Jungkook's face just enough for their eyes to meet. "Tell me what happened," Jimin said softly, but the softness held a quiet command, a truth Jungkook had always followed without question. Jungkook exhaled shakily. "I didn't mean to lose control. But you did." Jimin's thumb traced the heat on his face. "And I'm not angry." That was the moment Jungkook broke, not in weakness, but in the raw, terrifying honesty of someone who had finally run out of places to hide. He slumped forward, forehead brushing Jimin's collarbone, the tension melting into breathless, vulnerable silence. Outside, the city hummed, but the studio felt sealed away in its own universe, a place where secrets could finally breathe. Jimin held him until Jungkook's shaking calmed, but his own heart beat like a reckless drum. Because he too carried a truth he had kept buried, one he wasn't sure he was ready to face. As minutes passed, Jungkook finally stepped back, though Jimin's touch lingered like a ghost on his skin. Jungkook wiped his face with the back of his hand and forced a small, wavering smile. "They'll say I overreacted again," he murmured. "That I'm too intense. Too emotional. Too complicated." "You're human," Jimin replied, stepping closer again. "And you feel everything with your whole heart. That isn't a flaw." Jungkook studied him, searching for something he wasn't sure he deserved. "Why do you always defend me?" Jimin's throat tightened. He had rehearsed 1,000 deflections, 1,000 ways to step away without letting the truth spill out, but in the dark studio, with the trembling still lingering on Jungkook's skin, he couldn't lie anymore. "Because losing you," Jimin whispered, "is the only thing I'm truly scared of." The words hung between them, hot and charged. Jungkook's breath stopped as if the world pressed pause. He stepped forward, just an inch, then another, drawn like gravity to Jimin's warmth. "You don't have to be scared." "But I am," Jimin admitted, voice cracking. "Because once I let myself feel this, I can't take it back." "And you," Jungkook cut him off with a broken laugh. "Hyung. I've been waiting for you to feel this." The confession didn't explode. It melted slowly, like ice giving in to heat. Jungkook reached up and placed his hand over Jimin's, the one still cupping his cheek. His fingers intertwined instinctively, like they were made to fit. The studio felt darker, quieter, almost sacred. "Earlier," Jungkook said softly, "I wasn't trembling because I was angry. I was trembling because I almost told you everything, and I thought it would ruin us." Jimin let out a breath that sounded like relief and agony in equal measure. "Say it now." Jungkook's eyes searched his, raw and open. "I'm in love with you." The world didn't crash. It didn't explode. It simply aligned, silently, beautifully, overwhelmingly. Jimin inhaled sharply, eyes glistening. "You think I didn't know?" Jungkook blinked. "Then why?" "Because I wasn't ready to face what it meant. Loving you means breaking rules, crossing lines, risking everything we built." Jungkook stepped closer until their foreheads touched, breath mingling in quiet desperation. "Hyung. We've been risking everything since the day we met." Jimin laughed softly, a sound trembling with affection. He rested his hands on Jungkook's shoulders, feeling the warmth beneath the fabric, the tension, the unspoken years of longing. "But there's still something you're hiding," Jimin murmured, eyes narrowing slightly. Jungkook froze. Jimin felt the shift. "Tell me." Jungkook hesitated, but not out of fear, out of knowing that once he said it, nothing could ever return to the way it was. "There's someone," Jungkook whispered, who threatened to expose us. They were watching earlier. That's why I panicked. That's why I broke the mirror. Jimin's breath hitched. Expose us? But we weren't, they think we're already together, Jungkook said. And they have proof. Videos. Audio. I don't know what they want, but they said they'll release everything. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Jimin's heart thudded as he took Jungkook's face in both hands. Listen to me. Whatever comes next, we face it together. No running. No hiding. Jungkook swallowed hard. You're not scared. Terrified, Jimin admitted. But not of them. I'm scared of losing you. A tear slipped down Jungkook's cheek, and Jimin brushed it away with the gentlest touch. Jungkook closed his eyes and leaned into the warmth, letting the fear burn out quietly. The two of them remained standing in the center of the dim studio, surrounded by shadows and broken glass, but for the first time all night, their hearts felt steady. Jungkook rested his forehead against Jimin's again, letting their breaths sink. Then I'll walk with you, he whispered, whatever the cost. Jimin smiled, soft and luminous even in the darkness. Good. Because I'm done pretending I don't need you. Their fingers intertwined again, steadier this time, more certain. The fear was still there, the danger still real, but so was the love that had survived years of silence. And in that dark studio, with trembling replaced by quiet resolve, they finally understood one truth: they were stronger together than anything that threatened to break them. Everything else, every threat, every consequence, every shadow waiting beyond those studio walls, could wait. Tonight, all that mattered was the warmth of a hand held tightly, the honesty shared in the dark, and the love that refused to fade. A love that, finally, they no longer had to hide. The corridor outside the studio was so quiet it felt abandoned, but Jimin could sense the tension in Jungkook's footsteps as they walked side by side. His hand brushed Jimin's once, twice, as if seeking assurance without daring to ask for it outright. They both knew someone had been watching earlier. Someone who had recorded something. Someone who had leverage. It wasn't just fear of exposure. It was fear of manipulation. When they reached the practice room on the 4th floor, the door was already slightly ajar. Jungkook froze mid-step. You locked this earlier, he whispered. No, Jimin answered slowly. You did. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither breathed. The very faint light from the hallway barely reached inside the room, but Jimin could see enough. The silhouettes of chairs, a jacket on the floor that wasn't theirs, and a phone lying screen down in the center of the room as if left intentionally. Jimin's heartbeat quickened. Stay behind me. Hyung, no. If they're here, I said, stay behind me. Jungkook swallowed hard and obeyed. It wasn't Jimin being controlling, it was Jimin being protective in a way that made Jungkook's chest ache. Jimin pushed the door open slowly. The air inside was warm, as if someone had just been there. The faint smell of cologne still lingered, sharp, expensive, and unmistakably unfamiliar. There was no one in the room, but the phone on the floor buzzed once, vibrating against the wood. A message lit up the screen. Jungkook stepped closer. Don't touch it. But the message preview was already visible. I told you I always get what I want. Enjoy the first episode, the next drops at midnight. Jimin felt an icy chill crawl up his spine. Episode? They're releasing footage like a series? Jungkook's voice cracked. They must have been hiding cameras for weeks, months. Hyung, how didn't we notice? Jimin reached down and picked up the phone despite Jungkook's warning. On the lock screen was a still image from earlier that night, Jungkook's trembling face in Jimin's hands, the moment too intimate for the world to see. Jimin's grip tightened until his knuckles turned white. This is intentional. They're not exposing us. They're taunting us. Before Jungkook could respond, the overhead lights flickered on abruptly, bright and harsh. Both of them flinched, then a voice crackled through the speakers. Jungkook. Jimin. I knew you'd come back to find the phone. Jungkook stiffened. Who the hell is that? The voice laughed, smooth, confident, terrifyingly calm. You don't need to know who I am. Not yet. But you should know this. I'm giving you a choice. Jimin stepped forward, jaw clenched. We don't negotiate with cowards. Cowards, the voice echoed. Hyung, I've been in the same rooms as you. I know how you speak when the cameras are off. I know how Jungkook looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. I know everything you've been hiding from each other. And from the world. Jungkook's eyes filled with fury. Come out and say it to my face. Another quiet laugh. You're adorable when you're angry. But here's the deal. If you want the recordings to stop, I need something from you. Jimin stepped forward. What? There was a pause. A long, chilling pause, then the voice said it clearly, break up. Jungkook inhaled sharply as if he'd taken a blow to the ribs. We're not even, you are, the voice hissed. Maybe not publicly, maybe not officially, but you're in love. And everyone who watches the footage will see it instantly. Jimin's heart thudded painfully. And if we refuse? Then I'll release all the recordings. Every moment. Every whisper. Every touch. Jungkook's fists trembled with barely restrained rage. You're disgusting. I'm practical, the voice answered calmly. You two are dangerous together. Too powerful. Too emotional. Too loyal to each other. And loyalty is the most unpredictable weapon. Jimin stepped closer to the speaker on the wall. Why are you doing this? Another pause, then the voice dropped into a tone chillingly personal. Because watching you fall apart is more interesting than watching you fall in love. Before Jimin could respond, the line cut off with a sharp beep, leaving a silence so heavy it almost rang. Jungkook pressed the heels of his palms to his eyes, shaking. Hyung, what do we do? Jimin walked to him and gently pulled his hands away, brushing his knuckles with his thumb. We don't break up. But if they release the videos, then they release them. I won't lose you to a threat. Jungkook's eyes filled with something fragile and fierce all at once. Hyung, you're choosing me over your career. I'm choosing you over fear, Jimin whispered. There's a difference. Jungkook's breath hitched. He stepped forward, grabbed Jimin's shirt, and pulled him closer until they were chest to chest, breath mixing in desperate waves. You can't say things like that, Jungkook said, voice trembling. Not when I already want more than I should. Then take more. Jungkook's breath caught. Hyung, Jimin leaned closer, his lips brushing Jungkook's ear. Take what you want, Kook. Jungkook's entire body shivered. His hands slid up Jimin's arms, gripping tightly, as if trying to anchor himself in a world shifting beneath his feet. But before he could move, a camera flash burst from the doorway. Jungkook spun around. The door slammed shut again. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Jungkook sprinted toward the exit, but Jimin grabbed his wrist. No. Don't run after them. That's what they want. Jungkook turned back, breathless, devastated. Then what the hell do we do, Hyung? Jimin pulled him in again, pressing Jungkook's hand to his own heartbeat. We stay together. No matter what they release. No matter who they are. Jungkook stared at him like he was both salvation and destruction. I'm scared. I know, Jimin whispered. So am I. But if you're with me, Jungkook's voice broke, I can face anything. Jimin cupped his cheek again, softer this time. Then hold on to me. Jungkook did. He stepped into Jimin's arms, wrapped himself around him, burying his face in the crook of Jimin's neck as if he could hide from the world there. And maybe he could. Jimin held him tightly, stroking the back of his head slowly, rhythmically, until Jungkook's breath steadied and the trembling faded outside. The world waited with its threats and shadows. Inside, Jungkook gripped Jimin like he might lose him at any second, but Jimin wasn't going anywhere, not now, not ever. The night outside the building had turned colder, the kind of cold that seeped through windows and into bones. Jimin and Jungkook left the practice room slowly, both walking as if the shadows in the hallway had eyes. No cameras were visible, but that didn't matter anymore. Whoever was watching didn't need to hide. Jungkook's fingers brushed Jimin's again, but this time Jimin caught his hand and held it firmly, pulling him into the stairwell where the fluorescent light hummed above them like a restless ghost. Jungkook let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Hyung, what if they got everything? Every moment. All those nights we stayed late and thought, then they got it, Jimin said. There's no point drowning in what ifs. But those weren't even moments that meant anything, Jungkook whispered. At least, not to you. Right. Jimin's eyes snapped to him. Who told you they meant nothing? You did, Jungkook answered quietly. Every time you walked away first. Every time you pretended you didn't stay because of me. Every time you said it was just practice, or stress, or routine. Jimin closed the distance between them in 2 quiet steps. And you believed that? I had to, Jungkook said. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have survived wanting you. The stairwell felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Jimin's breath hitched as he reached up, gently brushing his thumb across Jungkook's jaw. Jungkook's skin was warm beneath his touch, and it made something in Jimin's chest twist sharply. You really think I stayed because of practice? Jimin murmured. Jungkook swallowed hard. Hyung, don't do this unless you mean it. I've always meant it. Jungkook's eyes widened, and he reached for Jimin's waist without thinking, fingertips slipping beneath the hem of his shirt in a touch that was more desperate than daring. Jimin gasped softly, breath catching in his throat. Jungkook froze as though waiting for Jimin to pull away. He didn't. Instead, Jimin moved closer, until Jungkook could feel every breath against his lips. The heat between them was sharp, electric, dangerous. Jungkook's fingers curled slightly against Jimin's skin. Hyung, he whispered. Say what you want, Jimin murmured. Clearly. No hiding. I want. Jungkook hesitated, voice trembling. I want you to need me the way I need you. Jimin exhaled shakily. Kook, I already do. Jungkook's hand on his waist tightened, pulling Jimin even closer. Their bodies aligned, chest to chest, breath mingling, hearts pounding too fast to be safe. Jungkook pressed his forehead to Jimin's, letting his eyes flutter closed. You're going to ruin me, he whispered. You've already ruined me, Jimin said back, voice low, almost broken. A noise echoed from the top of the stairs, a soft click, like a shoe shifting its weight. Jungkook jerked back slightly, eyes snapping open. Someone's here, he breathed. Jimin grabbed Jungkook's wrist and pulled him down the stairs. They descended fast, footsteps echoing like falling dominoes. At the 3rd floor landing, Jimin shoved open the door leading to an unused soundproof recording booth inside. Now. Jungkook followed without arguing. The room was dark except for a faint emergency light glowing from above the door. The soundproofing absorbed their breath, their heartbeat, even the panic that tried to climb its way up Jungkook's throat. Jimin closed the door behind them quietly, his back pressed against it. We're not safe out there, he whispered. Jungkook tried to steady his breathing. We're not safe in here either. Maybe not. But no one can hear us. Jungkook's gaze flicked toward the walls, his voice raw. You think that matters anymore? They're filming us, Hyung. They're following us. They know every place we think is safe. Jimin stepped closer, placing a hand on Jungkook's chest. Then look at me. Look at me and tell me the truth. What truth? The one you keep swallowing down every time we get close. Jungkook's muscles tensed beneath Jimin's touch. His pulse was fast, too fast. Jimin could feel it beneath his fingers. Hyung. I'm trying not to break. Then let yourself break, Jimin whispered. With me. Jungkook's breath shuddered. He leaned forward and rested his forehead on Jimin's shoulder, hands gripping Jimin's arms as if anchoring himself. You don't understand, Jungkook said. If I break in front of you, I won't be able to put myself back together. I'll help you, Jimin murmured. Piece by piece. Jungkook's fingers slid up to Jimin's neck, not harsh, not soft, just enough pressure to feel the pulse beneath his skin. Jimin's breath caught again. You make it so hard to think, Jungkook whispered. You make everything feel like it's burning. Then burn with me. Jungkook pulled back slightly, meeting Jimin's eyes. There was something wild in his gaze, something starving and terrified and tender all at once. He moved closer until his lips hovered barely a breath away from Jimin's. Tell me to stop, Jungkook whispered. I won't. Tell me it's wrong. It isn't. Tell me you don't want this. Jimin shook his head slowly. I want you. I've always wanted you. The tension snapped. Jungkook grabbed Jimin by the waist and pulled him forward, their bodies slamming softly against the padded wall. Jimin let out a quiet gasp as Jungkook buried his face against Jimin's neck, breathing him in like he needed air to survive. Jimin's hand slid up Jungkook's back, gripping the fabric of his hoodie, holding him close, grounding him, giving in to the moment that had been building between them for years. Hyung, Jungkook whispered, voice cracking, I don't want to hide anymore. Then don't. But they'll tear us apart. Jimin cupped Jungkook's face again, thumb brushing the corner of his mouth. Let them try. Jungkook's eyes softened, and he leaned into Jimin's touch with a mixture of vulnerability and hunger. Stay with me tonight, Jungkook whispered. I wasn't planning on leaving. Jungkook closed his eyes in relief, resting his forehead against Jimin's again. Their breaths synced, their bodies pressed close, the soundproof room holding their truth gently. But as the silence settled, Jimin noticed something. A tiny red light in the corner of the ceiling, barely visible. Barely blinking. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper so quiet Jungkook almost missed it. Kook, we're not alone. Jungkook's eyes shot open, following Jimin's gaze. The camera was hidden, carefully placed, and recording. Jungkook's breath trembled. Hyung, they're already inside the safest room we have. Jimin swallowed hard, pulling Jungkook closer, not out of desire now, but out of something deeper, darker. A promise. Then we fight, Jimin whispered together. Jungkook nodded, gripping Jimin tightly, but neither of them knew the truth yet. The recording wasn't just live, it was broadcasting privately. Someone watching their every move, smiling, waiting, and planning the next strike. The small red light in the corner kept blinking, quiet and merciless, as if mocking them. Jimin didn't move at first. He kept Jungkook close, one hand on the back of his neck, the other gripping his waist. Jungkook's breath was still uneven, his pulse still too fast, but now his trembling had nothing to do with fear of his feelings and everything to do with the silent watcher above them. Hyung, what do we do? Jungkook whispered, his voice brushing against Jimin's collarbone. Jimin kept his voice steady even though his stomach twisted painfully. We don't panic. If they want us scared, we won't give them that satisfaction. Jungkook pulled back slowly, their foreheads brushing for a moment longer before breaking apart. His eyes lifted toward the tiny blinking dot. They're listening. And watching. Let them hear this, Jimin whispered. His fingers threaded into Jungkook's hair, gently forcing his gaze back to him. I'm not afraid of loving you. Jungkook's breath caught sharply, but Jimin wasn't performing. It wasn't bravado. It was truth. Truth spoken to Jungkook. And truth thrown deliberately at the watcher. Jungkook reached up and held Jimin's wrist, gripping tight, his thumb stroking him almost unconsciously. If they release this, everything will change. Then let it change, Jimin said, voice steady but eyes burning. I'm tired of lying. Something in Jungkook softened, something raw, unguarded, heartbreakingly real. His hand slid down Jimin's arm, fingertips grazing skin, sending heat up Jimin's spine. The room felt too small again, too warm, too charged. Jungkook whispered, Hyung, you're going to destroy me like this. Jimin leaned closer, lips almost touching Jungkook's jaw. Maybe I already have. The red light blinked steadily. Whoever was watching had front row seats to the moment two worlds collided. Jungkook closed his eyes for a second, breathing Jimin in, letting the warmth steady him. But then a harsh buzz erupted from the phone still in Jimin's pocket. He pulled it out. There was a new video filed. No sender. No caption, just the words, episode 2. Jungkook stepped back. They already edited it. Jimin clicked play. The footage wasn't from the soundproof room. It wasn't even from earlier tonight. It was from 6 months ago in a hallway backstage after a concert. Jimin was sitting against the wall, exhausted, head tilted back, sweat still dripping from his jawline. Jungkook was standing over him, handing him water, brushing damp hair from his forehead with a touch far too tender to be written off as casual. Jimin sucked in a breath. We didn't even say anything that night. We didn't have to, Jungkook said bitterly. They knew exactly what they were looking for. The video zoomed in on Jungkook's hand, the moment he cupped the back of Jimin's neck to steady him when he almost fell forward. The way Jimin leaned into him. The way Jungkook didn't move away. The clip cut sharply. The next shot was darker, more intimate. A rehearsal room at 1 a.m. Jimin was asleep on the couch, curled up with Jungkook's jacket draped over him. Jungkook was kneeling in front of him, brushing his thumb across Jimin's cheek with such tenderness it almost hurt to watch. Jungkook whispered on the recording, "Why do you always look like this when you're not pretending?" Jimin's breath caught. He didn't know Jungkook had said that. The clip ended abruptly. A final message flashed on the screen. Tell the truth before I tell it for you. Jungkook's jaw tightened. They've been collecting moments. Intimate ones. Ones we didn't even know were intimate. They're building a narrative, Jimin said. A dangerous one. Jungkook paced the small padded room, fingers tugging at the hem of his hoodie. Hyung, if they keep releasing these, people will believe we're already together. Jimin stepped toward him. And if we are? Jungkook froze, the silence stretched for a moment too long, the air trembling between them. Then Jimin took Jungkook's chin between his fingers and forced him to meet his eyes. Do you want me to pretend again? After everything tonight? Jungkook's jaw clenched. I don't want pretending. I want you. All of you. Not when cameras are off. Not when we're scared. I want you because you're you. Jimin's breath shuddered. He leaned his forehead against Jungkook's once more. Their closeness was a whisper away from dangerous. Then take me as I am. Jungkook exhaled, shaky and surrendering. His hands slid around Jimin's waist, pulling him in with a raw desperation he didn't bother hiding. I've wanted this for years, Hyung. I just didn't want to ruin your life. You won't, Jimin whispered. Someone else is trying to do that. Jungkook's grip tightened. Then we find out who. Before Jimin could answer, the red light above them blinked twice, fast, urgent. Then the speaker in the ceiling crackled to life. A voice, calm but laced with poison, filled the room. You want the truth? Jimin stiffened. Jungkook moved in front of him instinctively. The voice continued, then let me give you a name. The air seemed to stop. Jimin whispered, who are you? The voice chuckled softly, you know me. Jungkook's fists clenched. Show yourself, coward. Another pause. Then the voice said a name that made Jimin's stomach drop. A name both of them knew. A name that should have been impossible. A name that changed everything. It's me, the voice said, and I've been watching you for a long, long time. The sound cut. The red light stopped blinking, and the room went completely, suffocatingly silent. The studio is no longer dark. Dawn spills through the high windows like something reborn, yet the tension between Jimin and Jungkook pulses thicker than the night that came before. Their breaths fog the air in the half-lit room, and the silence is so fragile it feels like it might shatter with the smallest truth. Jungkook is the first to break it. His voice is raw, still trembling with all the confessions they had held back for too long. He tells Jimin that the fear he carried wasn't about the world discovering them but about losing him the moment he reached out. Jimin steps closer, his hand hovering near Jungkook's cheek, the same spot he held when everything began. His voice is soft but unshakably certain as he says that the thing he feared most was seeing Jungkook break alone in the dark while pretending he didn't care. The air between them grows warmer, thicker, charged. Their words intertwine, sometimes too heated, sometimes too vulnerable, each confession cutting deeper than the last. They speak of the nights they avoided each other, the jealousies they pretended not to feel, the half-finished sentences that kept them awake long after rehearsals ended. Their arguments rise and fall like storms, intense and sharp, but every clash only reveals another truth they had buried. Jungkook's frustration spills over in a rush. He demands to know why Jimin kept pulling away whenever things got too real. Jimin fires back, accusing Jungkook of running first, of hiding behind smiles that masked feelings too heavy to carry alone. Their voices echo against the walls, hot, emotional, shaking with the weight of everything they refused to admit. And then suddenly, as if both realize at the exact same moment that they're fighting only because they want the same thing, the heat collapses into something achingly gentle. Jimin steps forward until Jungkook's breath mingles with his. He murmurs that the truth is simple. He loved Jungkook long before he ever dared touch his trembling face in that studio. Jungkook freezes, then laughs a quiet, broken laugh, the kind that sounds like relief finally allowed to exist. He admits that he loved Jimin long before he had the courage to say any of it out loud. They fall into each other's arms, not dramatically, not desperately, but with the steady, grounding certainty of two people who finally understand they no longer need to run. The warmth between them replaces the cold tension that once filled the room. The last of the fear melts away as Jungkook rests his forehead against Jimin's shoulder, and Jimin breathes in deeply, as if memorizing the moment outside. The world begins to wake, unaware of the quiet revolution happening inside the studio. They talk softly now, about the future, about the risks, about the inevitable challenges. But instead of dread, There's hope threading their voices. They agree that whatever comes, questions, pressures, shadows, they will face it together, not as something fragile or forbidden, but as something they chose, fully and honestly. When they finally step out of the studio, the morning light washes over them. Jungkook reaches for Jimin's hand without hesitating, and Jimin laces their fingers together, not caring who might see. For the first time, there is no trembling, no hiding, no darkness thick enough to separate them. The night that began with fear ends with something that feels almost like freedom. And as the door closes behind them, the studio that once held their secrets keeps only the faint echo of their laughter, soft and certain, lingering in the golden light of a new beginning.